Have you ever had one of those days where you knew something just wasn't right? And at the end of the day, you wished you could have a do-over. Well, listen to this story. On a blazing August afternoon in 2024, the city of Chicago simmered under a relentless sun. The kind of heat that made the air shimmer above the asphalt, that pressed down on the city like a heavy, invisible hand. It was the sort of day when the city's pulse slowed, when even the most hardened locals sought out slivers of shade and the promise of a cold drink. The streets were alive with the hum of distant traffic, the occasional blare of a horn, and the low, persistent buzz of cicadas echoing from the sparse trees lining the boulevards. Even the pigeons seemed to move slower, wings flapping lazily as if weighed down by the heat. The city felt both alive and suspended, caught in a haze that blurred the lines between afternoon and evening, between reality and the mirage of summer. In the heart of downtown Chicago, where the glass and steel of the Willis Tower cast long shadows over the city's patchwork of old and new, a gritty street artist named Marcus "Mack" Carter claimed his usual spot at a corner cafe. Mack, as he was known to most, was a fixture in this part of town, a man whose presence was as much a part of the landscape as the graffiti that adorned the alleyways. He was the kind of guy you might pass a dozen times without noticing, but once you did, you'd never forget him. Today he parked himself at a battered metal table, the city's energy swirling around him, the anticipation of something big hanging in the air. The cafe was his stage, the city his audience, and every day brought a new act, a new story waiting to unfold. He ordered an iced latte, the kind that left a ring of water on the table, and a slice of blueberry pie that looked almost too perfect to eat. The cafe was a haven from the heat, its faded awning offering just enough shade to make the wait bearable. Mack took a long drag from his vape, exhaling a plume of vapor that drifted lazily into the thick summer air. He scanned the street, eyes hidden behind scratched aviators, every sense on high alert. The city was a living, breathing thing, and today, it felt like it was holding its breath right along with him. He checked his phone, thumb hovering over a string of cryptic messages, but there was nothing new, just the steady tick of the clock, and the slow melt of ice in his glass. The world outside seemed to slow down, every second stretching out, every sound amplified, the clink of a spoon, the distant laughter of a couple passing by, the faint rumble of a train somewhere underground. She was supposed to roll up any minute now. The buyer. The one who'd been nothing but a name in his inbox, a ghost in the city's digital underbelly. Mack didn't know much about her, just that she paid in cash, asked no questions. She was extraordinarily beautiful and had a reputation for getting what she wanted. He'd heard whispers about her in the circles he ran in, stories that sounded more like exaggerated urban legends than truth. But today, she was real, and she was coming to meet him. The empty chair across from him felt like a challenge, a silent dare to see if he could keep his cool when the stakes were this high. Every time someone approached, Mack's heart kicked up a notch. But it was never her. Not yet. The anticipation was a living thing, crawling up his spine, making every nerve tingle. Mack, a lanky 38-year-old with tattoos peeking from under his hoodie, reminded himself to stay chill. He'd been around the block more times than he cared to count, each tattoo a story, a scar, a memory inked into his skin. The city had shaped him, hardened him, but it hadn't broken him. Not yet. He was the kind of guy who thrived on the edge, who found comfort in chaos. But today, even he could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He flexed his fingers, the inked lines on his hands catching the light, and took another slow breath. He'd learned long ago that patience was a weapon, and today, he'd need every ounce of it. The city's rhythm was unpredictable, and Mack knew that sometimes the best move was to wait, to let the world come to you. Make sure you stay tuned. I've got something exciting coming up later in the video that you won't want to miss. Mack had flipped plenty of counterfeit art over the years, paintings, sketches, even the occasional sculpture, moving pieces through black market back channels and late-night meetups. But this deal was different. The stakes were higher, the risks sharper, the payoff bigger than anything he'd ever touched. The art in his portfolio wasn't just another piece, it was a statement, a challenge to the city itself. He could feel the anticipation building, a slow burn in his chest that matched the heat of the day. Patience was the game, and Mack was determined to play it better than anyone else. As the minutes ticked by, he settled deeper into his chair, eyes fixed on the horizon, ready for whatever came next. The city might be sweltering, but for Mack, the real heat was just beginning. In that moment, surrounded by the hum of Chicago and the weight of his own expectations, Mack knew he was standing at the edge of something that could change everything. He was about to go for broke and put it all on the line. He had never invested this much time or money on a piece of art in, or for that matter, one of his schemes. This deal was all or nothing. If this deal was successful, Mack would become instantly wealthy, but on the other hand, if this deal went sour, Mack would lose everything he'd ever worked for. The city pulsed with life, a living organism made up of thousands of stories unfolding at once. Tourists and locals swarmed the busy street, snapping pics of the skyline, their faces lit up by the glow of their phones and the excitement of being somewhere that felt important, alive, and full of possibility. The air was thick with the sounds of honking horns, distant sirens, and the constant hum of conversation in a dozen different languages. Street vendors called out their wares, the aroma of roasted chestnuts and strong coffee mingling with the scent of rain on concrete. It was the kind of day when the city seemed to vibrate with energy, every corner promising a new adventure or a hidden secret waiting to be discovered. Even the smallest moments, a busker painting a quick portrait, a couple laughing over spilled coffee, felt charged with meaning, as if the city itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. In the midst of all this chaos, Mack stood apart, a silent observer on the edge of the current. He blended into the background, unnoticed by the throngs of people who brushed past him, each lost in their own world. Totally oblivious to Mack's quiet watch, the crowd moved on, unaware that he was there for a reason, that he was searching for someone. He had learned long ago how to disappear in plain sight, how to let the city swallow him up until he was just another face in the crowd. But his eyes missed nothing. Every detail mattered. The way people moved, the patterns they made, the subtle shifts in energy that signaled something was about to happen. Mack's senses were heightened, tuned to the city's frequency, picking up on the smallest cues, a nervous glance, a hurried step, a conversation that dropped to a whisper. He was a part of the city, but also apart from it, always watching, always waiting. He knew those skyscraper spires well. He'd sketched them 100 times, each line etched into his memory as much as onto the paper. The city's skyline was like an old friend, familiar, comforting, but always changing, always challenging him to see it in a new way. Sitting in a corner cafe, he'd spent countless hours watching the light shift across the glass and steel, capturing the city's moods in graphite and ink. The sketches weren't just art, they were a way of understanding the city, of mapping its secrets and its rhythms. Every building told a story, and Mack had learned to read them all. He could tell when something was out of place, when a shadow fell where it shouldn't, when a face in the crowd didn't belong. The city's architecture was a language, and Mack was fluent. He could sense when the city was restless, when it was hiding something, when it was about to reveal a new secret. Have you ever just had the feeling that something just wasn't right? Like you could tell something was about to happen? Then, finally, he spotted her. Tall, with platinum blonde hair that caught the afternoon light like a beacon, dressed casually but sharp, moving through the crowd with a confidence that set her apart. She didn't rush, didn't glance nervously over her shoulder, but there was a tension in her posture, a readiness that told Mack she was always aware of her surroundings. She moved like someone who knew the city's every shortcut and hiding place, someone who could disappear in an instant if she needed to. For a moment, Mack wondered if she'd seen him, if she recognized the game they were both playing. But she kept walking, her gaze fixed ahead, her expression unreadable. The crowd parted around her as if sensing her presence, and Mack felt the city's pulse quicken, the air between them charged with anticipation. Her name was Lena Novak, about 30, and she looked like she'd just stepped out of a streetwear photo shoot. She wore chunky sneakers, may converse with a plain white tee, and an attitude that said she didn't care what anyone thought. Her style was effortless, the kind of look that took hours to perfect, but seemed thrown together at the last minute. She moved with the easy grace of someone who belonged in the city, who understood its rhythms and its dangers. Mack had heard stories about her, how she'd grown up on these streets, how she'd learned to fight for everything she had, how she'd built a reputation as someone you didn't want to cross. But seeing her in person was different. There was a magnetism to her, a sense of purpose that made her stand out even in a city full of people trying to be noticed. She was the kind of person who could walk into a room and change the temperature, who could silence a crowd with a single look. And ripped jeans. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed for attention, but every detail chosen with care. The rips in her jeans were just right, the kind that looked accidental but were probably the result of hours spent searching for the perfect pair. Her white t-shirt was crisp and clean, tucked in just so, and her sneakers looked brand new, the soles barely scuffed. She wore no jewelry, no obvious signs of wealth or status, but there was something about the way she carried herself that made people take notice. She was the kind of person who could walk into any room and own it without saying a word. Even her silence was a statement, a quiet confidence that drew people in and made them wonder what she was thinking, what secrets she might be hiding. But her aura said she knew her way around the game. Have you ever noticed that the rich and the wealthy don't always dress that way? Even though this was a powerful businesswoman, you could never tell by the way she dressed. There was a confidence in her stance, a streetwise edge that came from years of navigating the city's undercurrents. She didn't flinch when a car backfired nearby, didn't react when a group of teenagers shouted from across the street. Instead, she leaned against a graffiti-covered wall, arms crossed, eyes scanning the crowd with a practiced calm. Mack recognized that look, the look of someone who'd seen too much, who'd learned to trust no one and expect anything. He wondered what she was waiting for, what her next move would be, and whether he was about to become a part of her story, or just another face she'd forget by morning. The city around them kept moving, oblivious to the silent tension building between two strangers, who knew that in a place like this escalation could happen in the blink of an eye. In that moment, the city felt smaller, the noise faded, and all that remained was the electric possibility of what might come next. Mack remembered their last meet. She'd told him she was a marketing exec from Vilnius, Lithuania, a city he'd only ever seen in travel magazines and late-night documentaries. The cafe where they met was tucked away on a side street, its windows fogged from the warmth inside, the air thick with the scent of strong coffee and the low hum of conversation. Outside, the city was alive with the sounds of trams and distant laughter, but inside, time seemed to slow down. Mack always felt a strange sense of anticipation before these meetings, as if he was about to step into a different world, one where the rules were a little looser, the stories a little wilder, and the people a little harder to read. The city itself seemed to conspire with their secrecy, its narrow alleys and shadowed corners offering a kind of anonymity that made every encounter feel both intimate and dangerous. In those moments, Mack felt like he was living in a story that was being written in real time, each detail more vivid than the last. She'd introduced herself in German, her accent so flawless that Mack had to double-check her story. He'd met plenty of expats and travelers in his time, but there was something about the way she spoke, every word crisp, every phrase perfectly timed, that made him wonder if she was telling the whole truth. He watched her as she ordered coffee, switching effortlessly between German and English, her laughter ringing out above the clatter of cups and the hiss of the espresso machine. She seemed completely at ease, as if she belonged in every city at once, and yet there was a flicker of something else in her eyes, a guardedness, a secret she wasn't quite ready to share. It was as if she wore her confidence like a mask, slipping it on and off with practiced ease, always revealing just enough to keep him intrigued, but never enough to let him all the way in. Mack found himself drawn to that mystery, the sense that beneath her polished exterior was a story as complicated as his own. Now is where you gotta keep watching and pay attention, because in just a few moments, a secret will be revealed that could change everything. When she handed him her business card, Mack noticed it immediately. 2 addresses, one in Vilnius and another in Berlin. The card itself was simple, almost nondescript, but the dual locations spoke volumes. He turned it over in his hands, feeling the weight of the paper, the embossed lettering catching the light. It was a small detail, but in Mack's world, small details mattered. They were clues, breadcrumbs leading to bigger stories. He wondered what kind of marketing executive needed 2 bases of operation, and why she'd chosen to share that with him. Was it a test, a warning, or just another layer in the carefully constructed persona she wore like a second skin? The ambiguity of it all gnawed at him, making him question not just her motives but his own reasons for being so invested. In a world where everyone seemed to be playing a part, the business card felt like both an invitation and a challenge, one that Mack couldn't resist accepting. Their greetings had settled into a comfortable routine, a quick hug, a nod, a shared smile that said, "We've been here before." There was an unspoken understanding between them, a sense that whatever brought them together was bigger than either of them cared to admit. They didn't talk about trust, but it was there, woven into the fabric of their conversations, tested and reinforced with every meeting. Mack had learned to read the subtle cues. The way she leaned in when she was about to share something important. The way her fingers drummed on the table when she was nervous. The way her eyes darted to the door whenever someone new walked in. These were the tells, the little signs that let him know he wasn't the only one keeping secrets. Their rituals, these small gestures, became a language of their own, a way of saying what couldn't be spoken out loud. In a world where words could be twisted and meanings hidden, these silent signals were the only truths they could rely on. They ended up at Mack's studio, a small loft tucked above a forgotten alley, its walls covered in layers of paint and memories. The space was a reflection of Mack himself, chaotic, creative, and just a little bit dangerous. Spray cans lined the shelves, their colors bleeding into one another, while canvases leaned against the walls, each one telling a story of late nights and restless energy. In one corner, a battered record player spun vinyl from another era, the crackle of old jazz and punk rock filling the air. It was a place where rules didn't matter, where the outside world faded away, and where Mack felt most alive. He'd invited her into this world, not because he trusted her completely, but because he was curious. Curious about her story, her secrets, and the way she seemed to fit so effortlessly into the chaos. The studio became their sanctuary, a place where they could drop their guards, if only for a little while, and let the city's noise fade into the background. Here, surrounded by art and music, Mack felt the boundaries between them blur, as if the stories they told each other were painting new realities on the walls. If you're enjoying this story so far, hit the like button, and let me know in the comments what you think. Your feedback helps me make better videos. So, finally, Lena pointed at a massive painting in the corner of the room. So this is the famous Van Gogh that the world is looking for? Yes, that's her, and the price I've given you is a price I would only give to a friend like you. Only someone with rare talent for beauty like you could even appreciate such a work of art. Yes, I know, Mack, Lena responded, but I must be honest, your price is out of my reach, it is far above my means, but the reason I have come this far, old friend, is to tell you I have a business acquaintance who is willing to pay double your asking price and give me a 10% finder's fee. Double? Mike repeated surprisingly. Yes, double. Who is this acquaintance? How do I know I can trust him? I'm not asking you to trust him, Mack. I'm asking you to trust me. And trust the years of business we've shared together. I know I will be putting my name and reputation on the line. If we have a deal, you could have the money in your account in 48 hours. Mack knew that in the business of fine art, especially counterfeit art, you never rushed a deal. Patience was the name of the game. I'll have an answer for you in 24 hours, Mack said calmly. Okay, Lena replied, but don't sleep on this, Mack. I think this is a good opportunity for both of us. That night Mack could sleep. Why would someone pay double for a counterfeit painting? Double would put the price well over $5 million. The buyer must know something that I don't, Mack said to himself. But whatever it is, I'm going to find out. The next morning, Mack called a friend of his, who was an expert in counterfeit art, and asked him to come by and give him an appraisal of the painting. Mack had a secret that no one knew about the painting. It was passed down to Mack from his great-grandfather. Mack didn't pay for the painting, he inherited it. It didn't matter how much Mack sold the painting for, it would be all profit for him. And besides, the painting was a counterfeit. He was sure that his friend's appraisal would confirm that $5 million was literally a steal, and that Mack should take the money and run. Lena called Mack 3 times within a 2-hour time span, but Mack didn't answer. He allowed each call to go to voicemail. Mack was trying to be as patient as possible and not be rushed by Lena and her business acquaintance. When the art appraiser arrived, Mack told him about the offer for $5 million. Just as they began to discuss the painting, the phone rang. It was someone from the district attorney's office. Hello, Mr. Carter, my name is William Stone. I'm called from the district attorney's office. We have a very important matter we'd like to discuss with you in our downtown office. Are you available today? Important matter? Today? Mack asked hesitantly. Yes, today. It shouldn't take long. Well, okay, I can be there by noon. Great, we'll see you then. When Mack hung up the phone, you could see panic all over his blushed face. Mack looked at the appraiser and asked, "What should I do? I know they're going to arrest me, they just want me to surrender. What should I do?" Mack asked repeatedly, his voice trembling. Don't panic, Mack. Call your lawyer and tell him to meet you in the DA's office and make your bail's bondsman is ready to pay your bond after they arrest you. Mack did exactly what the appraiser said and headed downtown to the district attorney's office. As Mack, his attorney and the appraiser waited in a conference room, the DA and 2 men with suits entered the room. Mack was sure that the 2 men were detectives. The DA sat at the far end of the long conference table and asked calmly, Mr. Carter, I'm going to cut right to the chase. Do you have the Van Gogh painting called The Peasant in the Field in your possession? Mack thought about his answer. He couldn't be in trouble for that painting because he inherited from his great-grandfather. It wasn't stolen, and he hadn't sold it yet. Mack cleared his throat and said, yes sir, I have it. I inherited it from my great-grandfather about 10 years ago. Is there a problem? I don't believe it's worth much. It's in my studio right now. The district attorney and the two men immediately stood up and began walking towards Mack. Mack stood up and began to place his hands behind his back to be arrested. The DA got very close to Mack's ear and said, Mr. Carter, we have been tracking you and that painting for several years. We had to wait until we had clearance from UNCLA, the United Nations Cultural Arts Agency. Now that we have the clearance, we have been authorized globally to inform you that the particular Van Gogh that you own is worth $275 million. We have been authorized to give you and the painting around-the-clock security and protection. We will move you and the painting to a secure location until we are given further instructions from the UNCLA headquarters. Mack was speechless. He tried to talk, but he passed out. Stay tuned for part 2. Thanks for watching.